Well, we're going to have a little bit of fun on this panel. I'm Samantha. I'm the founder of Yap Global. We're a peer agency helping Web3 and crypto companies tell their stories. But numbers and data actually speak louder than words. And so I'm very privileged to have the research powerhouses in the industry. We've got Alex from Nansen, Juho from Kaito AI, and Mats from Dune. But let's start with the story, actually. So Alex, do you want to begin with a short little story, and you guys can share a little bit more about what you guys have seen this year?
Absolutely. Great to be here on a great panel. I want to share first because Mats and I used to work together a long time ago. And I remember in 2017, we were sitting in Barcelona at some bar talking about how we need to start working in crypto. And here we are, many years later. We've created the two leading on-chain data analytics companies. So it's great to be in a panel with Mats and, of course, with you, who we spend a lot of time together as well here in Singapore. So yeah, I run Nansen, which is on-chain analytics for investors. Our mission is literally to surface the signal and create winners. So yeah, happy to be on the panel.
Matt's doing go next.
Yeah, I just want to jump in here because the way I got into crypto was Alex convincing me to invest in an ICO. So it's quite fitting that Nansen, or that Alex went out to start Nansen, which is investor focused, clearly. But yeah, I'm Mats. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Dune. Started Dune in 2018. Our focus is to help blockchains, protocol teams, and users to understand what's going on chain from a community angle. So if you log on into Dune, you're dropped into a product with 500,000 analysts. And yeah, that's us.
All right, and
Hello,
Juho,
everyone.
yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I didn't have the privilege to be working with Alex and Mats directly, but I did come into the space using the products all day long. So definitely kudos to them. My name is Juho. I built Kaito, which effectively is a search engine for the Web3 space, which is now the leading information service terminal for the space. At this stage, we help more than 300 companies. Half of those are kind of funds, basically liquid funds and VCs, institutions, market makers, etc. And the other half are product teams such as Ethereum Foundation, Solana, Chain, Eigen. These effectively project teams and funds surfacing signal from unstructured text information mainly. So that's kind of the key difference versus maybe some of the data gurus on the stage. We don't track on-chain transactions per se, but actually we track on-chain and off-chain unstructured text information, thinking about Google for Web3.
Yeah, we were just chatting backstage about how impressive it is being here at TOKEN2049 with 20,000 attendees and all the beautiful booths that you see outside. But it's noisy, right? I mean, how do we filter out, what's the leading crypto protocol, what's doing really well? And so really, you're on stage here, you're looking at the go-to data analysis, research powerhouses. So just to begin, and this is for everyone and anyone to jump in on, could you give us a recap of the year, the past year? How has crypto analytics evolved? And yeah, maybe we just begin with that.
Yeah, happy to start with some thoughts. I think the thing that's quite unique now, and also I would say last year compared to a couple of years ago, is that we live in a multi-chain and multi-layered world. And that means it's not just more complicated for us to do our work, but it's also much more difficult for people to stay on top of everything that happens on all of these different chains, on L2s, even L3s, and so on. So I would say that's a big trend. I don't think that's going to change. I think we're going to continue to see lots of new chains and L2s come to market. And in a way, it becomes even more important to curate all this information so that you can stay on top of everything that happens. Because you don't really want to have siloed views on each single chain. If you're tracking your portfolio, you want to see that across all of the chains. If you're looking at where the smart money is investing, you want to see that in the context of all of these different chains. So I think that's a really big trend, and I'm sure something that all of us here relate to. Yeah,
that's interesting. The different multi-chains, and how do you really keep track of it all? How does Dune Analytics do it?
Yeah. So Dune obviously has like an uncurated look at everything that's going on. Today, I think we have 75 blockchains on Dune, and it's pure chaos, I would say. Like there's so much data, and the trend for this year, I think, is that there's so much available block space and so many new applications that are being deployed that there's actually meaningful, insanely meaningful activity that's going on. And sifting through all that data is challenging, but even more important than before.
Yeah.
I'll definitely agree with that, actually. I mean, it's, Alex obviously talked about multi-chain. From our experience, even if you look at kind of the world outside of crypto, you're actually seeing more fragmentation in terms of data. Think about nowadays, once LLM comes around, you actually have all these social media platforms shutting down access, right? Nowadays, when you use Google, you can't actually tap into Reddit, you can't tap into Twitter, you can't tap into Discord, etc. There's actually more fragmentation, and multi-chain is kind of one angle and aspect of that as well. So I think nowadays, actually, we're facing a unique situation where internet is more closed than ever. Data is actually more fragmented than before. So it's actually more relevant and more important to actually be able to derive insights from just such a fragmentation structure. And speaking of our experience, maybe slightly different from obviously Dune and Nansen's been around for a long time. Kaito actually just got launched in the beginning of the year as a younger company. We've obviously been seeing pretty good growth, adoption from both kind of the fund side as well as from the project side. I think a lot of the stuff that we are doing is trying to kind of standardize in terms of how people are thinking about the industry, thinking about approaching different stuff. Like for example, from the fund side, we're now having index for social sentiment, we're having index for mindshare, we're having narrative mindshare trackers for people to really understand without actually going into the very specifics of all the people, like all the Twitter timeline and how people have been talking about stuff, but actually very easy to synthesize in terms of, hey, like meme coin was kind of a major narrative kind of going into March, and then now it's kind of DeFi and some of the fundamentals coming around and chain abstraction, all that kind of stuff. We're able to kind of abstract away all the specifics of what people have been talking about, actually surfacing insights from that perspective. Obviously, from a project team perspective, people are now using Kaito for evaluating their campaign, tracking their mindshare, understanding where are some of the growth dynamics, whether they're under or over index in certain regions, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of what we do is really coming from complete blank piece of paper and trying to define how do we approach basically measuring some of the key KPIs and thinking about some of the mega trends and how you're doing within those mega trends.
Yeah. So in summary, as Matt, you were saying, there's 75 chains to track. There's so much to keep up with in crypto, but there needs to be a filtering. And really, Nansen, Kaito AI, and Dune are doing that for traders and for teams. So yeah, that's amazing work you guys do, and I think it's really valuable. We're here in Singapore. I think a significant portion of the crypto industry is here in Asia, which is super exciting. I know Alex and Yuhu, you live in Singapore. So are there any interesting trends that you see regionally? What do you see compared to, like, in the Asia Pacific region compared to what you see with crypto activity in, like, US, Europe, EMEA? Are there any interesting insights you can share?
Yeah, I mean, I think Singapore is kind of rising as one of the main crypto hubs in the world. You'd probably conclude that I think New York City is the #1 crypto hub globally, and Singapore is probably #2. And then Asia is actually incredibly diverse when it comes to crypto. Like if you go to Korea, it's a completely different world. Korea is one of the most active markets for trading, and some of the largest exchanges have Korea as their top market. Japan also, of course, had kind of a somewhat rocky history with crypto where they over-regulated the industry and sort of strangled it, but it seems like it's coming back now. And then, of course, you have so many Chinese investors and founders in crypto who live actually all over the world. Many of them are here in Singapore. So I'm personally really bullish on Asia overall. And if we zoom in on Southeast Asia, there's a really interesting ecosystem here around Web3 gaming, for example, where you have Ronin that's actually, technically at least, they have an entity in Singapore. But of course, a lot of the team is in Vietnam, and a lot of their players are in the Philippines, for example. So you have, I think Asia is super interesting overall for crypto, and many of the different countries play different roles somehow. So yeah, I'm really bullish on the future of crypto in Asia. I think that over time, Asia is going to become the most important region for crypto. But of course, today I think you'd probably conclude that the US and specifically New York City is number one.
Right, here to here.
I know that Alex obviously always been a huge Singapore bull. I enjoy reading all your tweets around that. Over time, I grew more and more bullish on Singapore. And actually, I mean, uniquely, I think, obviously, I agree with you, like, New York is number one in terms of just being a crypto hub. I think what's unique about Singapore is actually here we have a very strong pool of, actually very balanced pool of talents. So you have, obviously, like, a lot of diversity in terms of access to all the Asian countries, but also at the same time, even for us, we're able to tap into some of the machine learning engineers locally, which we wouldn't otherwise have access to in New York, because a lot of the machine learning talents actually on the West Coast. But actually here, we also have a bunch of other talents, like BD talents, we have data scientist talents, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's actually a very, very good mix of talents that we can tap into locally.
Mats, what's your impression? I mean, you and I live in Europe, but it'd be good to hear what your impression is coming here and seeing what's happening.
I must think that this week is something special, because it's absolutely insane at TOKEN2049 with 20,000 people. I don't know how many booths there are here, but I've seen more companies, more chains that I've never heard of in my life this week than before. So it's pretty intense. I live in Zug, Switzerland, which in many ways are like the cradle of crypto, I think, because of the extremely forward-leaning regulatory agencies that essentially protected utility tokens, etc. So my office is 200 meters from the Ethereum Foundation, for instance. And so it's definitely very different from Singapore. The scene is very small. So yeah, it's great to be here. Amazing energy, I'd say.
Maybe there'll be more protocols and chains to track on your analysis platform. But now let's move on to narratives. Crypto is one of those industries where every year there'll be something new that's trending. You guys were talking about with ICOs, then it became STOs, then DeFi summer, then NFTs. So let's go a little bit deeper. This year and over the past year, we've seen terms like chain abstraction, decentralized social, Web3 gaming, DePIN, crypto AI, which we'll delve into AI in a little bit, and then DeFi. Just which of these narratives do you think has the biggest chance of growing in the next year? Or are there any thing insightful you can say about what you've seen in terms of the reports you've tracked lately? Anyone can jump in.
Yeah, it depends a little bit on the time scale that you have in mind. I think the one that has the most potential on a long enough time scale is definitely RWAs, real-world assets.
Right.
Because it sort of brings in external forms of value and yield into the crypto ecosystem, right? I think even Vitalik had a tweet about this where he talked about how the yield should come from some external place, right? So if we think about stable coins as the first RWA with product market fit, although many people don't think of it as an RWA because dollars is kind of an abstract thing, but I think it is the first example of that. And then you have tokenized T-bills and money markets, which have been growing very steadily. And you have lots of different protocols and projects doing this. Now you're seeing things like tokenized GPUs, and you're seeing, of course, eventually, I think you'll get to the more sort of physical, real world things like property, of course, real estate. Eventually, is going to come on chain. And if you think about just the value of all these real world assets, both in the form of collateral that you can borrow against, if you have property as an NFT and you can borrow against that, I think that's a huge growth driver for crypto. But you kind of have to do this sort of asset by asset. And my hope and sort of the future I want to create is a world where every asset is tokenized. That's going to take a long time. And I love the name of this conference, TOKEN2049, because it gives you that future perspective. But I would say like RWAs, I think, is one of the things that's just steadily going to grow. And we're going to sort of overcome each hurdle at a time. And you're going to get new assets come on chain step by step. And that's going to grow the whole ecosystem. I think one way to think about the craziness of meme coins and NFTs and so on is that these are somewhat speculative use cases in the short term, but they actually help create the infrastructure that can be used for RWAs, for example. So if you have an NFT-fi protocol where you can collateralize an NFT and borrow against it, today that might be a pudgy penguin, but in the 2030s, you might be doing this with an actual house, right? And so to me, RWAs is the one that I think is the most compelling. It's also the hardest one in some ways. But yeah, I'd love to hear Juhu's thoughts as well, because you guys track like narratives very closely. So maybe you have some thoughts too.
I mean, definitely, I'll echo Alex in terms of, obviously, RWA has been a kind of a major trend over the past 12 to 24 months. As you pointed out, we actually track all the narrative in the space, and the way we track it is basically just by measuring the social mentions of these terms. From our tracker, the #1 narrative has been AI, very, very dominant, and #2 and #3 has been meme coin, as well as DeFi. They've kind of been rotating across, but there are also a lot of the emerging narratives that are really gaining a lot of the mind share. Chain abstraction being one, deeping being one. These are seeing really, really significant growth, either from adoption perspective or simply from a mindshare perspective. What we are also seeing from a different perspective is there actually seems to be a lot more focus on fundamentals and common sense at this point of the cycle. A lot of the times that people are asking the hard question is in terms of what does this needs to be on the blockchain, what does this really kind of do to the kind of the overall adoption. We're seeing more and more people asking questions such as this, which also kind of resonates with the recent trend of the so-called DeFi renaissance, because people are really kind of going back to some of the real adoptions and thinking what are some of the real use cases that people are actually adopting at this stage of the cycle. So I think that's a good trend that people are kind of applying common sense to a lot of the, either from a fundraising perspective or from a technology building perspective. So I think that's something that we're seeing as well.
I'd love to jump in here because I think the obvious trend to me is protocol teams turning into chain teams. So essentially a new Web3 native business model has emerged with the sequencer fees. So we work with a lot of protocol teams, and a lot of them are at the point where they're considering, they have, or they are going to create their own rollup. And I think this is super unique because now the blockchain is actually a piece of technology that you could put to use to your product. It's not just a global database that you program against, but it's something that you can purposefully use in your product. And you can have composability with all other apps in, say, the Ethereum ecosystem, but tune your sort of economic security. And I think that's a real trend that's going on. I mean, we entered the panel talking about multi-chain. I think that's going to continue. We're going to see more chains, more protocols being embedded natively into rollups. And I'm excited for that. Yeah.
Going one step deeper as a follow-up to that, I think Kaito AI recently tracked that chain abstraction narrative is really picking up. Can someone elaborate a little bit more of where you see that going? Because I think, from account abstraction to chain abstraction, that's on a more technical layer, that seems to be something that a lot of protocol teams, developers are talking about lately.
I can chime in here. Obviously, I think it's no secret that we're now seeing a lot more chains, and also seeing, one of the major hurdles for user experience is nobody wants to be, constantly bridging across so many different chains, and to be able to, basically set up different wallets for different chains, liquidity fragmentation, all that kind of stuff. It's a whole wave of, different kind of developer activities and kind of investment dollar really go into that field, really trying to build a better user experience for the end consumers.
Yeah.
The most magical on-chain experience I've had this year was on Sora, where I was going to mint an NFT on, I think it was the Sora network, but I have never bridged to the Sora network. But their app allows you to pay on any chain that they support. So I think I actually paid like USDC on Base, and I received the NFT on Sora chain. And this is powered by Relay Protocol. It's a super magical sort of bridging product. But essentially, it's chain abstraction, right? Sora doesn't care where my money is. And I don't necessarily care which chain the NFT is on. And that was super magical.
I think we're going to be seeing more of that, hopefully, and make it more, and crypto being more usable for people. I think Vitalik spoke about that yesterday, about crypto being more usable for everyone. You brought up that AI is definitely a big trend that you're seeing. So with the rise of AI, machine learning, and especially in crypto analytics, I mean, it's in your name. Well, it's Nansen.ai is your site, and then Kaito AI. It'd be good to hear what you guys are doing with AI and it's the role that it's playing with crypto analysis.
Yeah, I'm sure all of us could spend hours talking about this topic, actually. I mean, I think every company has to obviously have an AI strategy. Every software company, for sure, and probably every other company. The way we've approached it at Nansen is to think about it in two main ways. One is, how do you let AI power the product that you're building? And the other one is, how do you use AI for organizational productivity? And so on the productivity side, this year we've spent on average about 5,000 to 6,000 hours per quarter collectively working with existing AI tools. So this can be as mundane as a research analyst working with ChatGPT to write the research piece faster, or an engineer using Cursor to write better code faster, or myself, when I write my CEO updates, I'll go for a walk and I have ChatGPT voice on, and I'll just bounce back and forth with ChatGPT to write the actual message to the team. So this is the productivity part, and I think that's kind of universal to any company. You have to think about how to use AI and make your team AI native. On the product side, which is more specific to what we do, there's basically three pillars for Nansen. The first one is we use AI to build a stronger data moat, right? And many people know Nansen for our ability to label addresses, right? And now a lot of that labeling is fully driven by AI, actually. And so this is pretty amazing, just from like a cost perspective, because the way we've done attribution or labeling of addresses, we've always used a combination of man and machine, but now the lines are kind of blurring a little bit. And if you think about the cost structure of having an individual finding out what is this address and who's the entity behind it, the time that goes into it, you can associate an economic cost to that. And when you do it with AI, you can just do it literally with 100 or 1,000x lower cost, which means you can scale it up and label just way more addresses. So this is about the data mode part. The second part is to allow for fast and fluid interfaces. And this is probably the more kind of futuristic part of how to use AI, and the one that's going to take a long time to fully realize. The way I think about it is, if you've seen the movie Blade Runner, the original one, there's this scene where Rick Deckard, played by Harrison Ford, bounces back and forth with a TV screen, and he's zooming in, panning out, and giving voice instructions to the screen to figure out what's actually in the photo. I always thought of that as kind of the the voice and vision combination, which I think is super relevant for all the stuff that we do on analytics, right? Because if you're doing analytics and decision making, you want to have some kind of visual support for your decision making. It just gives you more comfort. And I think the voice and the natural language interface is going to be really powerful. So we're trying to trend in that direction. Obviously, today you can't really speak with Nansen, but like that's where we want to get to over time. And the third part is personalization, which is super underutilized in crypto. Like in Web 2, every product you use is personalized. But in crypto, somehow, you have very little personalization. So for us, when we help investors, we want to take your portfolio, your trading history, and actually help you surface new opportunities, as well as to give you input on what you might want to watch out for based on your trading history. And this, of course, is something you have to do with AI to make it work at scale. So yeah, building a stronger data moat, building fast and fluid interfaces, and personalizing the whole user experience.
I agree with all the points that Alex mentioned. And I actually think that AI, the application of AI within crypto is actually very, very important. It actually goes really well because crypto, you do have all the on-chain transactions, but actually without being able to kind of properly abstract away or be able to understand, contextualize it, it's very difficult to understand. Similarly, from the unstructured text perspective, you have such fragmentation and so much noise. Crypto is actually notoriously known as just a lot of scammers and a lot of the spams in the space. How do you actually apply AI technology to actually basically filter out all the noise and surface all the signal is a huge undertaking. So as Kaito AI, funny background, actually part of the reason why we were called Kaito is because there's AI in that. So there's always been kind of an AI company building a search engine in the space. Search engine obviously is an AI product. But actually with large language model, the whole way of how we're doing things has completely changed. And I kind of echo with what Alex mentioned in terms of maybe the product side of things, what we consider as external user interface, but also kind of the internal kind of things that effectively how we're doing things. And both of these have completely fundamentally changed. Just maybe giving some examples here. Internally, back in the day, if you kind of maybe just like using Google, right? The expectation of once you search for certain stuff, the expectation is within the first three blue links, you need to get to precisely what you need to get to. Otherwise, they think the search results are very bad. But nowadays, with large language model, as long as within the top 30 results, you have one that's really precise, can get you what you want, you can actually use large language models to go through all of this and then trying to semantically understand this and get you the answer. So the whole precision recall problem has changed. Or similarly, for example, for us, back in the day, you actually need tremendous amount of user data to be able to train your machine learning model. Nowadays, you can actually use basically agents and AI and machine learning models to actually just constantly re-evaluate itself. So for example, the way we're doing search nowadays is really just the agent will essentially change the small parameter and then evaluate both results and compare which one is better. And then on the back of that, we can just constantly iterate. So the whole way of how we're building the search engine, how we're improving and constantly iterating on the back of that has completely changed. And then kind of coming towards the external user interface perspective, I think a lot of the people, the moment they think about large language model, you think about kind of the chatbot interface. But actually, it's much more than that, right? So it's all the output, the precision of all the output that back in the day. Even like nowadays, for example, you have a lot of the crypto projects names are Story, Movement, Blast. These are very, very generic terms. How do you do proper social listening? Back in the day, there was no very good solution. It actually involves a lot of the manual and human labeling. Nowadays, you can actually basically use context-based tagging, understand semantically what his tweet is talking about, all that kind of stuff. That's a game changer in terms of user experience, but might not be kind of a chat interface. Although even just on that front, we just recently launched a Copilot, which is effectively a ChatGPT interface, but with real-time crypto knowledge and information. And then we're working towards launching our fully autonomous research agent, step by step, we're essentially democratizing how people are interacting with information. And these are the stuff that just wasn't possible before, and then now it's completely transforming the way things are being done.
That's super interesting. As someone in crypto PR, and we also have to keep up with the trends and narratives, I find that very insightful. Mats, what's Dune doing with AI?
I was going to say, you've opened a Pandora's box there, because
Yeah, so much
I think
to talk about.
AI, there's so many dimensions to this question.
Yeah.
Because you go through the boots on level 4 and 5, and you have probably, I don't know, 100 crypto XAI companies doing anything from decentralized training, decentralized compute, verifiable inference, all kinds of stuff. I saw this epic meme on Twitter, which was crypto saying that crypto is necessary for AI agents to transact in the future. And then the AI people is like, I don't think about you at all.
Yeah.
I think we're definitely trying to combine, but I'm not sure AI is thinking about us. But unlike, we're data companies, we're going to eat anything AI. And I actually think generative AI is most applicable in data companies. Fundamentally, it's information retrieval. And yeah, we've put it front and center in our product. We generate SQL for our users given a prompt. We explain dashboards, explain queries. We let you fork queries using a prompt. 99.95% of users automatically fix errors in their queries using our debug thing. So it's really transformative from a user experience perspective, both the chatbot interfaces, but also the fact that it could operate over text so efficiently. And I'm sure 100% of your engineers are using Copilot or Cursor or something like that. We are too. And so it's just really revolutionizing everything, I think.
Yeah. As we wrap up, we want to let's talk to the audience in the room here, the trader, the retail investor. How can your research firms support the average trader in the room, and yeah, what advice would you have to them navigating the market right now?
Yeah, I mean, Nansen has kind of over time crystallized its focus on the investor. Right? In the beginning, you had sort of journalists, analysts, and so on using our product, but we've just doubled down on the investor segment and the investing use case. So with Nansen, you can track your portfolio across 50+ different chains. You can discover tokens that you otherwise would not hear about through our product. And then you can perform due diligence on those tokens within the same product. But in addition, many people use it to discover addresses. And so one thing that a lot of our users do is that they find who are the most profitable addresses to follow or to learn from. And I always thought this was interesting about blockchains because they're inherently transparent. And so you can see among the hundreds of millions of addresses that exist, what are the few thousands or few hundreds that you actually want to follow and see how much money they're making, which tokens they're buying, and so on. You don't necessarily have to copy train them blindly. You could do that. But just learning from the masters is something you can actually do because of the transparency of the blockchain. So this is something I think is super interesting and kind of an emergent use case that has come up after we started Nansen. But yeah, so I would say generally the good thing about our product is you get this kind of vertical integrated product where you can do all the tracking of your portfolio, everything on chain, and also do the sort of alpha generation, as well as the due diligence. And yeah, copy trading is one of the things you can do either directly or just to take inspiration and learn from the ones that have the highest P&L and the highest win rate.
Yeah, that's the most exciting thing about DeFi. It's so transparent compared to traditional finance, where you don't really, if you're not in the room, you don't really know what's going on and how other traders are doing things. So that's exciting, and it's cool to see that there's platforms where you can track these things.
Yeah, as Kaito, we are a little more kind of general purpose as a search engine. Fun fact, actually, I came from traditional finance. I was a trader. I started off for about 5 years. So initially, the reason why I built Kaito was because I was struggling with my research in the space because none of the processes I had back in traditional finance is working here. Nobody files the SEC filing, and people are just tweeting on their personal Twitter account and sending announcements on the Discord. So I had a lot of a struggle kind of doing my own research, and hence why I built a search engine, essentially helping funds and traders and VCs essentially be able to do proper research, manage their portfolio, etc. Over time, unintended consequence, unintended use case actually, we realized a lot of the project teams actually need this because people want to do proper social listening, which is very, very tough to do on all the different social media. People want to understand how they're doing on the social mindshare, how they're being perceived, hence why all the sentiment trackers are very important for them. People want to understand how they can grow, whether they're over or under index in certain regions, if they want to target certain KOLs. Can I have an organic way of targeting certain KOLs, right? Rather than just generically reaching out to a group of people who want to be helping with your campaign. So all of that is effectively some of the derivative use cases that we're now serving. I'm sure there's a lot more that we're coming up with, and I mean, so basically either you're a product team, you're a builder, you're an investor, you're a trader, you are exchange market maker, you can essentially come and use Kaito for surfacing insights from all the noises.
Yeah, it's interesting you say Twitter or X. I like to say that X is like the public Bloomberg chat room of the crypto industry, and that's why we need, platforms like Kaito. I know a seat for a Bloomberg terminal is like 20,000, and these guys are charging a fraction of the price. So do consider. Mats, any advice for how the retail trader can gather some insights from Dune, and what advice you have for them?
Dune is not focused on the investor at all. Dune is a product for the builder, but that actually makes it really good for the investor because Paul Graham, the founder of YC, says something like, if you want to know what the next big thing is, look at the builders and the developers. What are they doing on their weekends, etc. And so over time, Dune has become sort of like a front page of crypto. And you go to Dune and you see what's trending, and that gives you a good feel, I guess, of what's actually happening right now. And so we're not really targeting that market at all. We leave that to our friends over here. But like you look at Dune and you get a feel for what new products are coming out, what are the airdrops, what are the things that are happening on chain.
There we go. You guys should check out Nansen, Kaito AI, and Dune. Thank you so much, Alex, Yuhu, and Matt, for your insights. Please give them a round of applause.